So cold open for Too Many Points on the Tell Me More podcast. Before I just clicked record, Bobby G, who's joining me. How's it going, Bobby?
It's going pretty good. I avoided the sweep, so it's still, my segment. It's still Bobby's hypothetical sports bets for one more week.
Oh, is that how it works? You avoided
I avoided the sweep, so I keep my pride. I saved a little bit of face.
So 5-1 means you're still the expert. Got it. Cool.
That's exactly how it works.
So before we got on, we were talking about not a great slate of games for week 4 in terms of entertainment, in terms of betting. We had a little bit of fun, although Bobby had a very bad week, as he just mentioned. And I was talking about where all of my real bets, other than the ones I make with Bobby this year, I just in a $100 buy-in fantasy league. That's about as much as I'm willing to put on a COVID season, which the heat really turned up on whether this season would make it through and how many games are going to need to be canceled or rescheduled. Or recently, a lot of experts have been pushed out these ideas of just stopping the NFL for a full week, giving them time to come up with a new strategy, a bubble strategy for the remainder of the season, because this was about as low impact for games getting knocked off while being about as scary for the NFL as possible. Because just looking at the Titans and Steelers game getting pushed back, and originally they were trying to figure out, okay, if we can test him for a few more games, and if there's no more extra positives, maybe we can have this happen. That blew up really quick. They had to push that game later in the season and start moving things around to make that work. Chiefs-Patriots gets pushed to Monday, and that seemingly had worked. There were there were a bunch of negative tests going all the way through, even though they had to take 20 of the Patriots, put them on their own airplane, send them to KC, and just hope for the best. It looked like it worked until Stephon Gilmore gets the positive. He hugged Patrick Mahomes at the end of the Chiefs-Patriots games. So that's like ground zero. That's the worst possible outcome for the NFL, despite the fact that only one game was canceled and one game was pushed back a day. Although now we know they probably should have canceled both games. Bobby, are you scared to death that the only thing in this life that matters to you is about to be taken away, and no more bets for Bobby G?
Especially with baseball winding down, if football gets taken away from me, I'm not. Oh no, down girl gets taken away. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my free time. I'm still going to sit at home and do nothing, but at least I sit at home and watch football and do nothing. But for the NFL, this has to be like as bad of a look as it can get, because you really didn't need to play this Patriots-Chiefs game. The quality of the game wasn't going to be very good. You knew it was a risk because Cam Newton still had COVID. Odds are that another player on the team would have COVID, and the incubation period for the positive test just wasn't there yet, as we saw with Gilmore. Now, if Patrick Mahomes, the face of the league, the new golden boy, gets COVID and he sits out, I think the NFL is going to change their tune a little bit, because with the Titans, they got pushed back because they basically had, half their team and staff have COVID. The Patriots had one test. The NFL saw that as, well, we isolated the one player, and let's push the game through so we still get that revenue. And that's probably what it was for. They just wanted to keep the season going, keep the money going, make sure, like, hey, guys, it's not going to stop. Don't worry about it. But it probably should have stopped. There's really no reason to play that Patriots-Chiefs game. We saw with, what Belichick came up on the defense, that it was a great defensive game plan against Mahomes. And if you had a full Patriots roster in there with Cam Newton, that might have been a different game. So not only could it change playoff scenarios, but now it could also get the Chiefs sick, and that could just domino down. And we see with the Titans, I've seen, stuff that they're still practicing. I don't know how true that is. It would be really dumb of them if they're still practicing with everyone with COVID. But at a point, the NFL needs to sit down and say, all right, if they get tested, just put them on bye week. And if they have to play games later in the season, before the playoffs to figure out the schedule or whatever, or even, have some tank bowl games in the Superdome in the middle of February, who cares? But anything is better than what they're doing now, because they're kind of just, if they did with Cam Newton, they just brushed it underneath the rug, pretended they didn't have an issue, and eventually they will have an issue where they have to delay more than one team. And it looks like the Titans probably aren't even going to play this week again. So they're going to have to figure something out, and they're going to have to figure it out quick. So like you said, what else am I going to do in the winter if we don't have NFL?
Yeah, and for the Titans, I didn't see anything about whether they were still working out, but I think it was like something like a workout that they had the previous week where they had it at like a high school facility, and with like when they're told not to, it's like the whole point is everything that you do needs to be under the umbrella of the NFL, not from some ridiculous reason that they normally would, but in this case, when they have the detection software, they have the GPS on them. They have with Cam Newton, they had went back and they had actually watched surveillance footage of Cam at the facility to see that he was wearing his mask the whole time, that this is how close he got to everybody, not just from what the GPS said, but from what we can physically see. Like, they're going through and they're doing that. But at the end of the day, if at best you can limit it to 20 guys that you think are potential exposures and you put them on a different plane, and you're still going to need them to play before that incubation period is over, that it's just not going to work. Like that time frame, and these have been tests that did Cam. Was it Friday? But I know the Titans and those were earlier in the week. Like this isn't like somebody tested positive Saturday morning. Like there's been some days there, and it's still just not feasible. Like any positive test past Wednesday, there is just no way to account for this to prevent people who are infected, who are positives, from playing in that game, because you'll never get the test done that is past the incubation period. You're not going to. So the only way to do this is the way we've seen the other leagues that have been successful, which is the bubble. Like, you need to create a bubble where it's not just creating rules that you're hoping the players follow. They have to follow. They are put in quarantine the moment you find out they didn't follow it. And how that's done with football teams that are the size they are, that when you're trying to get them to play, like there's not like even in something like baseball where you could theoretically go to a big sports complex where there's 6 fields. There's not many of those anywhere. Like there's not a lot of places where you could try to put on 4 NFL games, even if you did 0 fans, and keep them in a safe environment and get that rotation going. But they're going to have to think of something, whether it's regional, and you just throw out whatever that schedule is. Just like, okay, we need to make sure that there's some sort of way for, okay, divisional teams finish out those games. Like you face everybody in your division and get those 2 games in. Then regionally try to match up. I don't know, maybe you do like a AFC East, NFC East. I'm not just saying that so you can get hilarious matchups, because I think AFC West versus NFC West doesn't help my Chiefs. Really, NFC West is pretty good, So, like, I just think that's probably the easiest way to do it, is to match them up by region, get as many of those games in. There might be some overlap where you might have already had teams face each other already, and they might just have to duplicate that, have a weird situation where you play somebody twice in a season. But whatever it takes, that's a better option, because if you're right, if it's about the money, like that one game versus the Chiefs and Patriots might have made you some money, but how much money is it going to lose you if you don't fix this process so that you can have most of your games over the rest of the season, where, they were lucky to have made it as long as they did without more positive tests, I think. And you could argue that this type of scare might make it where teams fall in line, that, management like forces players to follow the protocol better. I just don't think that's what's going to happen. I think without a full structure where you have them in a hotel for the duration of the season, without working those things out, these players are going to at different times take different risks. We've seen it, and this isn't a slight on the players, this isn't an attack on them. We've all done it. Like, we all are taking mitigated risks. We're deciding what's important to us, what we need to do to get by, and even if anybody is at the very least not on the level of just denying the problem with COVID, everybody else is trying their best, but that doesn't mean they're foolproof. And if you're not foolproof, if you're not doing everything possible to mitigate the risk, there are going to be positives, and those positives for the NFL means you can't play that game because that one time, like there are so many litigation issues, like with just what they just did, where they've done all the tests, they've done all this, and they allowed a player, knowing that there was a huge risk with the Patriots, go into that game and possibly spread it to the rest of his teammates that might not have had it yet, and the Chiefs players who hadn't had it. So there are so many issues. The NFL isn't like everything else where it's just kind of like, well, we're going to shut down this team. We're going to, like, I've seen it as covering high school sports. It's like, we're waiting until there is something, a problem, and then we'll shut it down for a couple weeks. But we're just hoping for the best. And that's not to say they're not putting in various protocols to limit the possible exposures and the possible positives, but it's just a fool's errand. And at the NFL level, where they are doing tests every day, they will find out that somebody is positive. They will not be able to play that game, or at least that person won't, and we'll get the same type of fiascos we're seeing. And eventually it will become an outbreak, because I think, if anything, those players were on their best behavior the first month. And over the course of a full season, you're going to have more of those instances, not less.
Well, especially in the cold weather teams, you got to think of it this way. Is a player in Buffalo really going to want to stay home in December and January or whatever it may be and just do nothing all day? No, that's just not human nature. So the NFL, to your point, they should have had some more structure in place. I mean, we've seen them fine, just about every coach and team $200,000 for not wearing a mask. Well, congratulations, $200,000 to an NFL franchise means absolutely nothing but a slap on the wrist. So at a point, they are going to have to, either crack down really hard on them, or just say, like, guys, we're going to go hide in Canada. They know how to do it. And then we're gonna rotate every day and play football every day. That'd be the perfect solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's ways to do it. I think, if you had like a multi-regional, I'm not saying just send them all to Canada, but if you do the split region, so there's maybe 8 different bubbles, and the way those teams will play, they'll face each other, and so, like, for 4 weeks, that matches out, right? That's close. 8 bubbles, 4 teams. So you'd be in a bubble with 4 teams. You would play 3 of them throughout. You'd have a buffer week, and you'd be able to get that play in. And if there was a positive test, shutting it down would be easier. And then you'd be able to send them to the next bubble that they're going to play their next round of 3 teams. It'd be something like that. And you could do that process. I know the NFL is kind of reluctant to have games every day, because I think even when they were talking about moving, I think it's Buffalo and whoever they're supposed to be playing, because they'd have like
Tennessee.
They'd have that Sunday game, I think, and then a Thursday game. So, like, they'd move it to Tuesday, then they'd have to bump that out. And I think the NFL is hesitant of putting it there, 1, for the kind of turnaround times for these teams, and 2, just because they want that same structure of most of the games are on Sunday. We have 1 on Monday, we have 1 on Thursday, and everything else is kind of going into a territory they're not quite ready for. But I wouldn't be against having, 4 games on Saturday, 4 on Sunday, 4 on Monday, that type of thing, like you were mentioning with just kind of rotating the teams in and out. If you had the bubble set up precisely, that's how you could do it, is, okay, this bubble has one of the games played the first day, and then you go to the next game the next day, and you'd be using the same field, but just rotating between those teams. And that way you keep them in packs. We're not just watching they're not going to do March Madness style, as similar to how you were just describing it, Bobby. There's no way we just wake up and we're like, another football game. Great.
We can hope.
I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying they won't do it.
You know how sad that would make every other TV station in the world, that if there's football every day, prime time would just annihilate the ratings and everything.
Yeah, but I mean, also you have to wonder how much the NFL is just that dominant, and how much that kind of structure of having all the games on Sunday it benefits, because even as they've kind of expanded to Thursday night games and things like that, like it's still a scarcity of resources. It's 16 games a year, 16 weeks, like you're spreading that out in a way that people familiarize themselves. This is my process. Once it becomes like soccer and you're like, just think of all the times you get upset when you thought you had your fantasy lineup set up and Tennessee versus Jacksonville in London's happening at like 6 a.m. And you're like, what the hell is this shit? Like, most of us did not wake up to watch that game. We were just sad when we got whatever last minute replacement for Leonard Fournette thrown into our lineup. We're like, haha, this was perfect. But Leonard Fournette actually played and we didn't pull the guy in time. And all of a sudden, we just got 0 on our fantasy because we didn't know the game started at 6 a.m. Like, that's what's going to start happening if you do soccer style and you start throwing football games randomly. One of the benefits and one of the reasons football dominates as well as it does is because we know exactly when that shit comes on TV and we watch it every time. You start moving it around, we're going to get confused, and we're not going to want to flip between every channel to find, let's say, NBA. That'd be the best comparison, is figuring out when that NBA game is on. Even if the number of people who want to watch it aren't willing to put in the time to find that game. Maybe NFL is different. We'll see.
The best thing about NBA is when I go on ESPN, like the game's at 8, like tip-offs at 8:20, that makes a lot of sense. Like, no, kickoffs at noon. The ball's being kicked off at noon. I will guarantee you that every Sunday.
What gets me with the NBA one is you go to ESPN, says this is when whatever game's starting, right? But they have the countdown. So, like, I can't click onto the game until it starts. And you're right, like, it won't necessarily start until 20 minutes after when they do the tip-off. So I can't start it on my streaming. I can't be on the ESPN app and get it going. So I'm like, okay, I'll watch what's on ESPN. I'll watch the countdown. So the countdown's on, and those idiots send me to something completely different when the game starts. I was like, I want to turn it on and watch it in the background, pay attention sometimes, wait for a good dunk. Like, you cannot be forcing me to pay attention to the exact moment that tip happens for me to click on the app. Like, that's not how it works if I try to watch on ESPN, right? Like, if I have cable, I turn the thing on, I sit on that channel all day, and when a game comes on, I look up from my computer to see what's happening. Stop making me have to pay attention every second to turn on the game at the exact right time. That's bullshit. I don't want to do it. Fix it, ESPN. Fix it. That's my rant of the week.
You should try to watch their game casts on ESPN, where it'll update every 5 minutes on MLB or NBA, and I'm just like, I give up. Like, I bet a lot of money on this, so I bet 0 money on this. Like, I'm not dealing with it. Just tell me what the score was at the end at this point.
So what I want is to be able to stream whatever channel I want, have the game set up, and then have the ability on my TV to say, okay, I want that game to take up this half. And then on the other half, I want to run that Gamecast box score stuff. Like, I want to have those stats right there, rather than me having to set up this Frankenstein's monster of big screen TVs, laptops, monitors connected by HDMI cable, and like keep flipping around to make everything kind of fit. And then it never really does. And then my wife hates me because I've destroyed the living room. Like, just make it where I can have these things side by side, because I love them. I'd love to use them at the same time. I just want them simpler. I want them cleaner. And why have such a cool ESPN app feature with the box score and the Gamecast and all that? It's like, what idiot is just watching that? He's just sitting there on his phone staring at that. Like, you have to be stuck at work. Those are the only people. Why not make it for somebody who is literally watching the game and wants that second screen to work properly? And they don't think about us. They just half throw it together. They make a lot of money, and someday they'll pull out cool stuff when they're stuck in a bubble, and they'll be like, look at all these cool camera things we do. Also, we're never going to let you be able to see that in any other format than randomly on the broadcast. Like, look at this cool thing we made. Can I look at that every game? No. Sorry. We just did it to tease you, you idiots.
It's all right. They're gonna listen to this one, and then when it pops up, we're gonna know we got because they got the $1 billion idea right there.
For anybody who watches wrestling, I pitched the Thunderdome a long time ago. Now, I wanted it to be like 3D holograms. Obviously, WWE was not willing to spill out the cash for that. That apparently it was cheaper to just get like 30,000 LED screens, but whatever. I was close. I pretty much described that back when they originally canceled in-person attendance back in March. But we'll see what changes might be made for the NFL with COVID, and if they improve anything. They're never improving any of the viewing experience stuff we just mentioned. But even just a normal season of trying to do the best way to watch a slate of games on Sunday, I think they have to go to a bubble. I think they have to relook at how the schedule is set up because we're in trouble. But before we get there, let's actually look at what did happen with this week. And I don't really have a great game. We just mentioned, Chiefs and Patriots finally getting to play. Obviously, that's our, bread and butter. As I'm a Chiefs fan, you're wearing the Patriots cap right now because you couldn't take the time to fix up your hair. So
I'm hiding my shame, sir.
Okay. So I'll start with you on that game because I've heard various Patriots fans. They come at all angles, and I know you think outside your box with ridiculous hot takes. So I'm not even going to guess what you thought of that game. I'm just going to let you tell all 12 of our fans, what happened with the Chiefs Patriots.
To be fair, my hot take last year, all year, was that the Patriots offense was garbage and hot trash, and it was garbage and hot trash all year. People just couldn't admit it. But I mean, my lukewarm take is, what bullshit was it that they were starting Brian Hoyer and not Stidham? I mean, it didn't matter. Didn't you really think you had a chance at winning that game with Brian Hoyer or Stidham? Probably not. No. You saw the defense just go balls to the walls the whole game, and Hoyer was still fumbling and throwing away the game until they pulled Stidham. Stidham's the future. Hoyer is just another, journeyman guy who's there to be kind of that old man mentor, but you have Cam Newton, so you really don't need that role. So I guess my hot take is if you're gonna go into the game, you're probably gonna lose. Why are you starting a guy who you know is not going to be anything in the future in this next year or two? You have Stidham. Supposedly they were really high on him. Supposedly he didn't start because he didn't get enough practice. But at a point, you just got to see what the kid's got. He made a couple of good throws, but, I mean, credit to Spagnuolo. But at the same time, this Chiefs defense didn't have Chris Jones. You weren't really going to be throwing Stidham into anything that was, like 2000 Baltimore Ravens where he'd shake his confidence. You just be like, all right, look out for Matthew. Everyone else on that defense is kind of trash. Just don't make any dumb mistakes. And then let's pray to God we can run the football a little bit. And, Julian Edelman, throw to him every time. He's the only receiver you got.
So I guess we'll start with the Chiefs defense looking like trash because at this point, we're getting rave reviews for the Chiefs cornerbacks, despite only having two of them at one point in time. And all of a sudden, Rashad Fenton is grading out as one of the top cornerbacks for Pro Football Focus. Now they're getting Bashaud Breeland back, and what would be described as a pretty awful situation. I know Chiefs fans, myself included, we've complained for a really long time about the lack of capital put into the cornerback position, but they're one of the bright spots on the team. How good are those players right now, and how much has just been the circumstances they've gone through? First, having a Ravens offense that was just put into a bad situation when they got down early. Patriots not having Cam Newton, and then not really facing a dominant offense to this point in the season for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think that they have a little bit of talent there. They have Jones. They have, young cornerbacks. But I think at this point, Spagnuolo just figured out what works for them. And we saw it kind of late in last year as we can both agree that they didn't have much talent on that defense for a good chunk of the season. Or at least, that was a perception that we got as, normal fans.
They didn't play well. Whether they have talent or not, I'm willing to say that me as a talent evaluator is a little overestimated. Even for the teams I watch a lot, like, I'm not getting to watch enough reps from these guys to tell you they don't have talented players that can be put in the right position. I definitely can't say that for other teams in the league, but I do know what I saw from the defense which was not good until the latter stages. And early in the year, it looked for a second like they were back to that early season Chiefs run for the defense last year, but they turned it around real quick.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they just figured out what works for them. But if you don't have Chris Jones, I mean, that's the linchpin of the defense. You weren't really going to get much of a pass rush, and Stidham's kind of mobile. So, I mean, I don't really have that much of a hot take other than, the Patriots defense did a lot more than I thought they would. And I was really surprised that the Chiefs didn't try to run more because, that run defense for the Patriots isn't, what it used to be. They don't have basically any linebacker talent from last year. They lost Van Noy. They lost Collins. Hightower sitting out. And I think Hilaire had like 16 rushes with 4 of them coming when, the game's basically over. So throughout the whole game when it was close, he basically had 10 rush attempts. And he did run it well when he had a chance. Maybe that was game plan. Maybe it wasn't. But, I mean, I really don't have anything hot on that because it really wasn't much of a game because we all knew what the outcome was going to be as soon as Newton was out and they were like, you're still playing with 1 day of practice. It's whatever.
No conspiracy theories on if Mahomes was the one who had COVID, they would have canceled and they only let this happen.
That's 100. We know that's 100% true. Let's be honest. And Mahomes wasn't in the grass.
I think if the situation is flipped, right? If it's Mahomes is the only one with COVID and they're heading into a game where nobody else is tested positive, I think they still play. I think if you find out Cam is sick and he can't play, and then a day later as you're still trying to get negatives, Patrick Mahomes comes up positive, yeah, I think they cancel. But I think the idea that it's just like unfair to the Patriots and it wouldn't have gone the same way the other way, I don't think so. I think the NFL has put so much into the idea that we have to play these games, and something like the Titans getting half their team to test positive. That's the only thing that's really going to stop them, or an additional positive heading into the game. I don't think it's going to be that we need our superstar out there, because while Patrick Mahomes has the higher profile than Cam Newton, games draw. We know from the ratings that Jets-Dolphins got.
Hey, that was a game. That was
it was a game,
man.
But nobody tuned in because they were expecting a game. They tuned in because it's NFL. And I don't buy the idea that because Patrick Mahomes wouldn't make it, they're like, well, we can't let the Chiefs play without him. Like, no, they would have totally let the game go on, and who knows what would have happened. Probably not good considering Mahomes is as good as he is, but Chiefs didn't do that bad when they were stuck with Matt Moore for a stretch there last year. So who knows? Any other big games or I'll let you jump in with whatever you got and then we'll move on to other stuff.
Yeah, just to the Chiefs' credit, they probably still would have beat the Patriots with Cam Newton because, once again, you still have Cam Newton thrown to basically a bunch of high school players, and Cam Newton's not that great of a passer as is. So the outcome, might have been a little closer, but the result would have been the same.
All right, so Eagles beating the depleted 49ers 25-20. This is so weird because I want to know which one is the proper take or whether we all just overreact every time a football game finishes. What was going in to be like, how can teams lose to the 49ers when they just have, Mullins back there and everybody else is injured? And then we get to a 25-20 finish, Eagles win, and it's how in the world did the 49ers lose to an Eagles team that's depleted? And it's just like, it's football, guys. First of all,
the spread in that game went up to 10 at the end. I was like, the 49ers are minus 10. Like, I had to text my friend who's a huge Philly fan. I was like, what's going on? Like, who died? What plane crashed? I'm like, how is this spread real? He's like, we suck. I'm like, I don't care that you suck. You're playing the 49ers and you have Carson Wentz. I think everyone saw the Giants last week and they're like, oh, man, this team's real. I'm like, no, the Giants are just that bad.
And we already have the Eagles clinched the NFC East. That's all it took.
At 3-13, probably.
They're gonna talk about how that tie really saved the Eagles' season and really put them on the right path.
At what, 6-9-1?
So, yeah, I think that was one that was interesting only for that. Bills 30-23 were still on the Are They Pretenders watch because it's
No,
like,
they're contenders to be 19-0. I'm putting it out there
all
still.
right. Once again, I still can't tell whether you're joking or not.
That's the
But
beauty of it.
30-23 against the Raiders, and you're like, all right, they did what they needed to do. They beat the Raiders. How good are the Raiders? That's the problem. We have so many teams that it's hard to figure out how much a win is worth, how much it really means, because we're not sure how bad these teams are yet. We're not sure how long it's going to take for John Gruden to go and get a new quarterback, because it's not even just he's not even worried that Derek Carr isn't good. He just always wants a new quarterback. So it'll be fun to watch John Gruden try to move on from that. Uh,
I got
the
a question
saddest
for
thing,
you.
Nick Foles losing to the Colts. I couldn't believe it.
But going back to the Gruden meme, at what point do you think Marcus Mariota gets to start this season?
I don't know. Like, I'm willing to go the long shot bet, and it's a COVID start. Derek Carr has to sit out a game. Marcus Mariota gets thrown in. I'll say week 8. I don't care about Colts Bears. Rams 17-9 over the Giants. Another one that's
We don't care about that. Don't worry about that game.
I mean, it's great for me. Helped me get one of those wins there. I thought for a second the Rams were going to like put on some garbage time TDs and get you the victory there, but it just was not meant to be. Vikings get the win over the Texans in the futility game finally, and this is the big topic that we'll have to talk about. Bill O'Brien gets canned, and we'll just ask you, Bobby, is this too little, too late? Or is this the right time, right move for the Texans to fire Bill O'Brien and put Romeo Crennel in charge? That should be fun for the rest of the year.
It was about 4 games too late and about 1 trade too late because you already gave up all of your first rounders and whatnot. You don't have Nuke anymore. You have David Johnson. Congratulations. You gave the Dolphins a really good first round pick, guys.
Yeah, I think the trade, that's the moment that you fire him. I think everything else that if you weren't smart enough to get rid of him before, and if making the playoffs, you're like, okay, we're not quite there, but he could fix it, this or that. The moment he pitches trading DeAndre Hopkins is the moment you fire him. Like that. Imagine the story that comes out of that, and imagine how much DeAndre Hopkins would be indebted to the Texans and would probably take some level of hometown discount on his next contract to be like, okay, this owner in the middle of a mutiny from Bill O'Brien trying to get rid of one of the best players on his team. The owner's like, are you an idiot? And just fires him. Like that's the type of moment that I would have loved this summer. But no, they let him make the trade. And everything from there has just been watching. Like, we'll see what happens when you trade away one of the best wide receivers in the league. It's not even like that was the only bad move he's made as a GM. One, just never let a coach become a GM. At most, you have to figure out that fine line where it's a bit like Bill Belichick, where he is extremely involved, but you have other people there that are making a lot of those decisions, But, like, you sure as hell just can't put him in charge and let him do whatever he wants and be like, I guess I'll check in a couple of years. Oh, he was shitty the entire time. Like, you cannot do that as an owner. And Bill O'Brien, as a coach, it was questionable whether you could keep him. He's been a horrific GM.
Yeah, it's even better because I believe it was a Texans correct that the players went up to like everyone were like, we don't want Earl Thomas. He's bad for this team. But they're like, Coach O'Brien, he's cool, man. Don't worry about him. He hasn't done anything since he's been here. He traded away our best player, but we'll keep him longer than need be. And somehow the most miraculous thing about this is he got fired before Adam Gase and Dan Quinn did.
It's crazy. I mean, I think it's a domino. I think we're about to see a few more coaches go by the wayside over the next few weeks, not just COVID related. So yeah, I think that was not a surprise in any way, but it was definitely too little, too late. And I think it's fine to put Romeo Crennel in charge. Don't think that that's going to help you win any games down the stretch. But just make sure that whatever that coaching hire is this time, get it right, because you're wasting Deshaun Watson's youth right now. Ravens get a 2-touchdown win over the Washington football team. I don't care about that one. A rebound game for Lamar Jackson, whatever. We'll see.
He always
Buccaneers,
rebounds
Chargers,
against
good.
really bad teams.
Buccaneers, Chargers, 5 touchdowns from Tom Brady. Next week he's going to take on the true GOAT, Nick Foles. But for now,
that's tonight.
Is that tonight?
That's
God.
tonight.
Well, okay.
Thursday.
So yeah, we're recording 3 days late, so now I'm lost. All right.
For the record, sir, since you kind of roasted me last week, who is the reason we're recording late this week?
That is me. I also each time message to say what happened. I didn't just fall asleep and a week later say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see that." So the point being, Buccaneers,
semantics.
Tom Brady, 5 touchdowns. Justin Herbert just chucking the ball across the field. Just some lasers. Not enough to get the victory against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, but good performance. So which one are you more impressed with? Tom Brady showing that father time, he's holding it off, stiff-armed it. He can't stiff-arm when he's actually running the football. But as a quarterback trying to keep going, he stiff-armed father time to keep going. Or Justin Herbert coming out and being a guy who, if not for a medical liability of a medical staff at the Chargers facility and nearly killing Tyrod Taylor, he wouldn't even have been playing, and now he has been a very good bright spot for this team that going forward, as they have those other pieces, can probably figure out how to get this together in the next 2 years, unless those throws are just a mirage. But which player impressed you more in that game?
Well, I think they were both impressive for different reasons. Brady was impressive just because you kind of thought, like, the season's starting off a little slow. They always have that nice first quarter drive and they kind of dip off. And, I thought that was going to happen again. You saw that first drive, they looked great. And then, the offense fell apart. Brady threw the pick six. And, I was like, man, this Aaron's offense just isn't for him. And then he came back, had that, comeback, 5 touchdowns, like, I don't know the yardage, over 300 yards. But I think Herbert for, against that Buccaneers defense that has looked pretty good. And a couple of those dimes he threw, he was getting, hit, a second after he threw those balls, and he still rainbowed them down the field 50-plus yards or whatever it was. So I think Herbert was more impressive. If Tom Brady has these performances in, December and late in the season when he has, 400-plus throws on that arm, he has, like a couple dozen hits on his body, like we saw with Brett Favre in his last season. He looked really good for, the first, 3 quarters of the season. Then he fell apart at the end. I believe that was his was that the Jets or the Vikings? Well, the Vikings, he got knocked out by Corey.
He sucked for the Jets, and then went to the Vikings, had one more good year. And
then he got knocked out by Corey Wooden in that college stadium. But for the Brett Favre Jets, he did look really good, and then he kind of Brett Favre Vikings.
Vikings. He looked good for the Vikings 1 year. Took them to the NFC Championship game, maybe. And then the next year, it fell off again. Like it was that was the Brett Favre saga. So no Jets. Did not look good for the Jets at all.
I feel like he did, because I remember that was the 2008 season where the Patriots could have made the playoffs, but Favre and that team just absolutely imploded at the end of the year and then lost to the Dolphins week 17.
No, they were just bad.
I don't know about that one. I'm gonna fact check that one a little bit.
All right. Anyways, so Tom Brady, impressive with what he does. Part of it is, they talk about, well, can he throw it deep? He didn't even really do that before, and it's like he's also never had this group of wideouts on his team.
He's never had Scotty Miller.
Even going back to the undefeated regular season, it's Randy Moss, and then you have like Wes Welker, but like to have these giants out there on the edge to throw up to, like he's not had that ability, which maybe he can take advantage of it. Maybe they're going to make him look a little bit better, and as he fades throughout the year, it might become a little bit of a problem. I like what I've seen, and for the Chargers, like I said, it's long term. I don't think this is going to turn anything around for them too quickly, but they were a team that were able to compete, last year. Like, they had so many pieces. Those pieces are injured this year, but if you can get a quarterback in there and you can figure out this is the guy, you can start building a team around him. That's a good place to be in, and maybe they'll just start figuring him out. But there's only so much you can figure out if you're able to run the way that Justin Herbert can and you have a cannon on your shoulders. Like, that's good. Like, that, just starting there, just from Josh Allen. Like, you don't need Justin Herbert to be Patrick Mahomes. We see with the Josh Allen model that is literally enough, and everything else is on the rest of you. Do not go around blaming your quarterback and thinking he's not good enough. Don't hide behind that. If you can't get that man to win football games, it's because you're not a good enough coach and you don't have a good enough GM. But that's the one thing we've learned this year from Buffalo. Just do what it takes. Whatever's on the team, make it fit around them. And I think that's becoming more the staple of the NFL. It used to just be plug person into my system, hope it works, and then try to blame them and hope I don't get fired. Now we're seeing coaches that are a lot smarter, a lot more adaptable, and it's made the league a lot more fun. The other game, you're talking about quarterbacks that had good rookie seasons and it fell off once they kind of figured them out. Baker Mayfield's obviously high on that list, and the Browns have turned it around. Not thanks to Baker Mayfield, though.
The Browns' rushing game has turned it around.
And it looked amazing. Obviously, though, you get the injury to Nick Chubb. Doesn't matter. Dearness Johnson comes in and starts running. So with that rushing attack and the way they were able to make the Cowboys look silly, we'll talk about the Cowboys in a second and what this game means to them and what their season looks like. But for the Browns, is this rushing attack, even with the Baker Mayfield's shortcomings and with the fact that now it just seems like all of Baker Mayfield's confidence is shot. It's not like he's even getting it back as the team is playing well. He is playing poorly through a rushing attack, doing all the work. Can this team make even a run at the playoffs?
I think they can make a solid, 9-7 season and just, Baker, because you can only run the ball so much. And, we've seen Dallas and their defense. I mean, it's Swiss cheese. It's 11 traffic cones. It is whatever you want to say it is. It's bad. And you even saw on that Odell jet sweep at the end, they had players there surrounding him. He had about 5 people around him, and they did the Miami Miracle where they just couldn't figure out how to, touch a player and tackle him. So, I mean, I also lost my fantasy match because of that, but that's just a coincidence of why I'm salty about that play. But I mean, Odell looked fantastic. You had the rushing game, but I mean, this seems like a game where Baker should have had, 350 yards, and, 3 touchdowns. It just didn't happen. He just had another game manager game. He's a very poor man's Drew Brees at this point. We kind of know what he is. He's not as dangerous as he thinks he is. And, at least now he has as many career wins as he does commercial, so he's on the uptick.
All right, so I was going to ask, with the way the Browns are playing, if they can make the playoffs, is this closer to like a Chiefs with Alex Smith team or like Texans pre-Deshaun Watson? Like, which one is more accurate to the style of team they could be? Like, look at like their ceiling. What's like best case scenario for them?
I think best case scenario is, you have T.J. Yates at quarterback and you beat Andy Dalton in the playoffs. But, I mean, Alex Smith Chiefs, you at least had Andy Reid scheming that offense. And
Alex Smith was good at being a game manager. Like,
yeah.
He wasn't a game manager out of, like, failures that just, it's like, oh, crap, now the only thing that's worked is these bad, little checkdowns. Like, he did the checkdowns, and he did them on purpose and to perfection. It was still based on limitation, but it wasn't this confidence shattering. Oh, all I can do is so that Alex Smith confidently looked at guys who had people on him. He's like, I can't make that throw. And then threw it to the side. Baker Mayfield, he got the big eyes out there just like, what the hell do I do? And that's not good because his number one thing was confidence. Even when it became bad and he started throwing a little bit of interception, his best plays come from that same level of confidence. And I'm not seeing it out there anymore. So that's a scary thing for Baker Mayfield, and scary for a team that even if you can build that kind of defense is important. Running game is important. We are going to find a way to win games, even if we can't outscore some of the better teams in the league. Like that, you still need somebody at quarterback that you can either trust or that has that potential to kind of break out. It's like you talked about TJ Yates, but even if you're like Matt Schaub before his last couple years, like somebody that's at least doing something productive for your team, you need to be at that level. And so when you take that shot at Baker and say TJ Yates, damn, I'm not saying you're wrong, you're right. Like, that's the big thing, is he even just a level above that. He does not need to magically become a elite quarterback, but you need that like average to slightly above average, and he's pretty far away from that right now. Any other big games for week 4 that we need to talk about before we just jump to Bobby's hypothetical sports bets and get on out of here?
No, it's still my segment, guys. No, I thought overall it was a pretty, I don't want to say poor week of games, but there wasn't much excitement this week. So I think we're gonna roll it into the most monotone segment of them all.
You didn't want to get a Cowboys joke in?
I mean, the Cowboys are the joke right now at this point. The only reason you're not, defeated overall is because the Falcons are an even bigger meme than they are.
I just love that, like we probably be 4 weeks from here, and say Washington doesn't win another game, it'll still just be like, well, we can't rule out Washington yet. It's going to be so long before any of these teams will not be in the race to win the division. It's really sad. So yeah, the Cowboys, it's crazy how much firepower is there, how entertaining it can be. And you just know that it doesn't mean anything. Like the Eagles just need to accidentally get slightly better, and they're going to be the NFC East champion. Like they're going to beat out the Cowboys. That's all.
It's going to be the new, I think it's the 2010 Chargers, where they're like first in, offense, first in defense, last in special teams, and they went like 8-8 or something like that. But it's just because that defense is so bad, and you have Mike McCarthy coaching you.
I won't even. We'll save the conversation about Mike McCarthy for another week. But Bobby, take it away with our fans' favorite segment of Too Many Points.
All right, so I'm going to try to do the games that won't result in a push after your distaste of that last week. So Thursday night game, you start off as always. You have Tampa Bay at Chicago. Tampa Bay is -3.5.
I'll take Tampa.
Yeah, that one's pretty easy. I mean, I think it's gonna be a little bit closer because the Bucs still don't have all their wide receivers, but then again, you're also
and the Bears don't have a quarterback or competent in anything at this point. What do the Bears do well?
They waste Allen Robinson and a defense and Khalil Mack.
Well, they waste Allen Robinson at superb levels, so I'll give them credit. That's an A for me on wasting of Allen Robinson.
So then you have next up, you have the Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are -11.5. I'm going to take the Raiders in the points because I always say, anything over 10 is too much. And I think the Raiders are going to be competent enough, and then they'll end up losing by like 21. But I'm going to go with the Raiders on this one.
All right. I'm glad you took that one because you were going to put me in a tough spot if I had to go between my Chiefs and the huge point spread there. So thank you very much.
Don't worry. I got some good games coming up for you to pick. So next up, this is a good one. So I'm going to give you a half a point on this one way or the other, so we don't get a push. You have the Cardinals at the Jets. The Cardinals are -7. We're going to move it down to -6.5. So do you want the Cardinals -6.5, or do you want the Jets +6.5?
I think the Cardinals. I think obviously they were not as good as we might have thought when the season started, and they started out as hot as they did. I also think that they are still much better than what we've seen the last couple of weeks, and they are going to try as hard as they can to prove that. So this won't even be just a beat the Jets and hold on game. Like I think they're going to just stomp the crap out of them. So Yeah, definitely going Cardinals on this one.
I do not disagree with that one bit. We're going to move down the line. I don't want to pick any of the COVID games, but speaking of Dallas, here's a fantastical game. You have the New York Football Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are -9.5. And, no matter how bad that defense is, they're still playing Danny Dimes and basically absolutely no one on that Giants offense. So I'm going to take the Cowboys -9.5.
Man, that's bold.
I mean, I'm trying to pick, the meme games, but here's a good one.
I'm just I'm wondering. So 9.5 of the Cowboys. Like, we've seen the Cowboys have to, even in their wins this year, just come back, barely get the victory at the end. And so they're facing a Giants team that, even losing Saquon Barkley and just looking like they have no idea what they're doing. You lose by 8 against a Rams team that has been otherwise pretty good. The 49ers, I mean, we know how humiliating that was. But from there, you lose by 4 to the Bears. How much better are the Cowboys than the Bears right now? And then Steelers, Giants, 10 points. If you would have given me that one, I think I take the Giants on it. I think with those points, I can't pick the Cowboys to beat anybody minus facing the Jets by 10 points. I imagine even the best Cowboys game is barely winning by a field goal.
Then as the executive owner still of Bobby's Hypothetical Sports Bets, we're going to double dip on this game, and this is going to be our fish fillet bet of the week.
All right.
And you have the Giants +9.5.
I'll take it.
And then, you know what? We're not going to do Sunday night or Monday night because I like this late CBS game because it's fan. You got the Colts at the Browns. The Colts are -2.5. Excuse me, the Colts are -2. For we don't get a push, I'm going to bump it up to 2.5 because it opened at 2 and it's at +2. It opened up at that. It's -2 now, so it's probably going to go up to 2.5 or 3. So we're going to say Colts -2.5 against the Browns in Cleveland.
This is me to pick?
That's for you to pick.
I'll take the Browns.
Ooh. I mean, I don't like it and I like it at the same time. But that's our 5 games for the week with the fish fillet bet. And we're even on fish fillet. In my opinion, that's the only thing that matters about this year's standing so far.
I like how it's the only thing you care about. You still lost the fish fillet this week, so you should still be upset.
Yeah,
you got.
But I'm 1-1.
Man.
I'm 1-1. Everything else is a lot worse than that. So we're gonna focus on the 1-1 and try to be positive.
All right, man. Do what you do. So in terms of the games, just to talk about, you didn't want to bet on it, but Bills Titans, if it happens, undefeated, 2 undefeated teams. How much are the Titans banking on just every game getting canceled so they can make the playoffs? They just 100%, go by percentage.
100%, because they're gonna lose to the Buffalo Bills because they're going 16-0.
Oh man! All right, Eagles Steelers. This one the Steelers have -7 is what I got on the ESPN app right now. That's going to be an interesting game. Like I said, I haven't heard anybody say anything about the Steelers being pretenders. Seems like they've done a lot of stuff really well, but I want to see what they do against a team that thinks it's getting itself back into the running. Eagles finally had the good outcome, the win, no matter who it's against, and now they're going to go in there and think, okay, let's prove what we can do against a in-state rival. I'm ready for the Steelers to just destroy them. That's what I imagine happening. But it's just so tough to think with the Eagles. Once you start seeing stuff happen, you're like, maybe they did figure it out. Maybe they got just enough pieces back. I don't think that's the case. I think they're going to get destroyed, but I'm excited to watch. So that's a good game. Mark that on your calendars, guys. Any other games you want to talk about before we leave?
Oh, I just want to point this out. Every week so far, I think we've had one of those games where it's the intern hit the wrong button and pressed enter in Vegas. Yeah. And that Eagles game is that game because somehow that game opened up at Pittsburgh -1. So it basically opened up at a pick'em, and now on my site it's up to Pittsburgh -8. So I'm gonna have to go back through the podcast and figure out what games I'm like, what is this person thinking? Oh my Lord, Arizona opened up at +1. All right, yeah, I'm gonna start tracking these and figure out how much money I'd make if I lived in Vegas, because that who thought the Jets were the favorite in the Cardinals Jets game?
I don't know, but
what bookmaker gets paid to make that choice?
But those are the most important games. Obviously, you got game of futility. Cowboys, Giants, don't really care. Patriots right now against a Broncos team that is on to like their 18th quarterback or something. Just get somebody in there who can throw it to Noah Fant, since he's my tight end in my fantasy league.
You might want to get a new tight end then, because he's out.
Yeah, but like, did he go in IR?
No, I
still need to have him on my roster.
I think he's just got like a high ankle sprain or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw somebody in there, but the main thing being Patriots 2-2. This is like a must-win game. I don't think this should be a problem for them, but as you're still, trying to, at least make another week. I assume Cam will not be playing in that game. I think even if it's Brian Hoyer or if it's Jarrett Stidham, doesn't matter. You got to get that win. And that's not saying that if you lose, it's like the same type of calamity that, if you're, lose to a 49ers team that's helmed by Nick Mullins. But Patriots need to win that game. So that'll be another important one. And then primetime games, not that great. Seahawks going up against Vikings, and then Saints and Chargers on Monday night. This is the first time we've had the Thursday games where we kind of know what we're getting. In terms of those primetime games, I think maybe last week, I forget if the Sunday night was that the Eagles 49ers?
Yeah, it was Eagles 49ers was Sunday, then Monday was the Patriots and Chiefs and the Falcons and the Packers.
So Eagles 49ers was still entertaining, even if when you're like looking at it, you're like, okay, that one just kind of was probably a good game when we scheduled it, and then didn't turn out that way once we saw the action early in the season. But this one is just a tough weekend to have both of the primetime games be ones that don't look that great on paper. So hopefully this is a better week of football than last week. Hopefully there's less COVID news. Hopefully everything gets worked out. But we're starting to get to that point of the season. We're starting to see not only defenses start to pick up, but just in time for the season to get shut down and for everybody to get thrown into a bubble. So, hold on to your hats. Things are about to get crazy, and we'll be here for every minute of it. That's all we have for this edition of Too Many Points on the Tell Me More podcast. I'm your host, Mac Borth. That's Bobby G. Later, folks.